we have a kind of a series actually of different recordings, but this is the first of the recordings of we have a panel of teachers who have experienced practicing restorative justice practices with students in their classrooms. And we really appreciate them for taking the time to come and be a part of this. And then also I want to really thank Laura Anderson for helping so much to organize this. And it was so great because she worked with all of these teachers here and with their students. And she recognized that they had something special to offer all of us, right? Just their experience. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a number of questions, just like a panel. And then we hope that this will be a great resource to you. So our first question is, please introduce yourself to us, along with how you became involved in restorative justice practices. So if we could start with Cindy, please.
Hi, my name is Cindy Page. I teach at Crawford High School. I teach AVID and AP Psychology. And I became involved with restorative justice practices when Laura showed up in my classroom and offered to train my AVID students on how to facilitate circles for their peers.
Thank you, Cindy. And Ilana?
Yes. Hi, my name is Ilana Mora, and I am a special education teacher for students with moderate to severe disabilities. And I learned about restorative circles because I had students that were mainstreamed in gen ed classes, and they went with my paras, and paras came back to my room and let me know that they did restorative circles in the other classes. And I was curious, so I went to the training, and I was the only mod severe teacher there, but I became very interested in pursuing it after I went to the training.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Ilana. And then Faye?
I came to this practice out of crisis. I had a fight in my classroom when I was out, just at just next door in a planning meeting, and I didn't know what to do. And I felt that students who were so well behaved with me could just explode in a classroom. I panicked, and I looked to Laura, who came in and to help kind of facilitate just an understanding of what went wrong. And I forgot to introduce myself, like what I do. I teach English at Crawford High School and also help Cindy with AVID. Sorry, I did that totally backwards.
That's okay. No, that's all right, Faith. It's all good. Thank you. And Monique?
Yes, my name is Monique Kander, and I am the lead law teacher for the Academy of Law and Justice here at Crawford High. And I'm in my 6th year of teaching, just starting. And before that, I practiced law as a trial attorney, a litigator in San Diego for about 20 years. So I became involved with restorative justice practices the day I joined the Academy, because it was built into our Academy that we first began with community circles and then repairing the harm through community circles and harm circles, and that we were involved with teen court and mediation. So I was just presented it and I dived in.
That's amazing. Thank you, Monique. And then Laura?
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. It's wonderful to see you, have you here, share your time and wisdom. It's an honor to be with you always. And I thank you deeply for your service. So my first question is, what helped you become comfortable in restorative circles? So it's obviously an unconventional way of being in class with students. So just wondering what helped you become comfortable with that. And again, we'll start with Cindy.
I'm going into year 30 of teaching and working with students. And so my philosophy has always been one that students have much more to teach me than I have to teach them. So I was always very comfortable with the idea of students taking the lead, but I didn't really have the tools to do it. to the extent that circles give them that power. Yeah. And so Lara coming in and helping me to teach my students how to do it really increased my comfort. And we also had a really candid discussion at one point where I asked her what I should do if, like, how deep should I go into my answers to the questions? Because that's something, like, I've always made it about the kids and tried not to make it about myself. But something that she taught me is that if you can fully invest yourself in the process, that it becomes that much more powerful. So that took some getting used to, because really I like to gloss over my experiences and focus on the kids. But through doing it with Lara and having a mentor there in the classroom, I was really able to adapt to that.
Thank you so much for sharing. And like you say, I learned so much from you, so much. You're a member of the circle, just like I was, just like the students were. I treasured those circles. So next we're going to Ilana.
After I went to the training in the spring, I became comfortable during summer school. I was doing ESY summer school, and I came there a week late, and we had nothing, and so I said, let's try on this restorative circles. And so the staff were so excited, and the students were really excited. And I think it was the positive enthusiasm of everyone just wanting to try on something new made me very comfortable. And I think we just started laughing. We all started laughing so much, and then it became like a collaborative discussion, because I felt like I wasn't alone. Everybody really wanted to participate. They all wanted to be there. And then we just kept trying on new ideas. And it was just really great to start out that way.
Thank you so much for sharing. I hope everyone has a chance to see your circles. They are outstanding. To see, oh my gosh, I can feel it right now. The amount of love in those rooms, and the learning and the community, it's very rich. So I appreciate you being here and sharing that. And for you doing it, for trying it on, doing it. And Faith?
As I said before, it was crisis, right? I was doing circles out of this need for discipline or something. It was very emotional. I think I became comfortable when we used it more preventatively, where we're going to do these things. We're going to do them on a regular basis. We're going to build community. And then a lot of the pressure for, like, how am I going to do this? Am I going to do this correctly? Kind of went away when I made it regular, when I made it a part of our curriculum, when I infused our learning from the classroom into the circles. I felt like I can justify this. This is a good use of my time. This has so many benefits for students. And then I felt like it was a curricular piece instead of a disciplinary piece.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I absolutely, everyone's nodding their head. And for me, my head nod is absolutely, you did that. You just dove in and you put so much into the practice. And I saw how your classroom was impacted by that. And I felt it. So I kudos, because your environment is not an easy one, being, new students at a school, 9th graders, and at least when I was there. So kudos to you. And then Monique.
Well, as I said, I took over the class from Steve Lutbeg, and it was, hey, this is what we do. And so I was very curious, because coming from a legal background, my thought was, what does this community circle, restorative practices, in the sense of this circle, what does this have to do with teaching? But I was curious, not in a challenging way, but in a wondering way, because I am curious by nature. So I jumped right in. I am a private person, so it's difficult, as Cindy was mentioning, to share myself with the students. But that is exactly what created those bonds that we now have, is being in there and sharing my own emotions and being very much authentic and real in what I say. I think that I became comfortable when once I was teaching the students how to become leaders themselves. And when the students took over and they began creating the questions and running the circles, and I truly was just a member of this entity that we had become, I felt truly comfortable.
As did your students. And the students that I maintained contact with as many as possible, and they speak glowingly of you and all that they've learned, and just have a sense of empowerment that is really wonderful to see. Anthony?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. So our next question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add something to it, because I heard you saying something, all of you, and I kind of thought, well, let's add this to this question. But this one's about, when did the restorative practice process really click for you? Something, either something happened that made you go, oh man, this is really something. But I also wanted to add in, there's like, what kind of benefits did you notice this, happening for your students? Right. So when did it really click for you, and what kinds of things did you start to notice in your students that was the benefit? And then if we can start with Cindy.
So for me, I think it really clicked when my students, like Monique just alluded to, when the students start leading the circles and they start planning the circles and asking the questions and really facilitating the process. And with my students, they then went out and facilitated circles in other teachers' classrooms. And the teachers were coming back with these glowing reviews about how amazing it was to have these student-led circles in their classrooms. And so that was when it really clicked for me. And the thing that made it click for me was seeing how empowered the student facilitators felt and how proud they were of themselves for really leading these circles and facilitating this process, sometimes in really difficult situations. Like they sometimes found themselves in classrooms where the teacher wasn't fully invested, or where the students were just really squirrely and they had a hard time getting them focused, or sometimes the actual physical environment of the classroom prevented the logistics of the circle from working easily, and them trying to troubleshoot how to fix that. So I think just the kids believing in themselves and recognizing how much power they'd come in and they'd say, they were sophomores, I facilitated a circle for seniors and they didn't laugh at me. And so it was just so great to see the kids and their successes.
That's fantastic to hear. It's really, I could tell your teacher colleagues are all like, yes, yes, yes. So let's hear from Alana.
What really clicked for me with the circles was the academic engagement. And I was being observed by the principal, and she came in during circle time and she said 100% of your students were engaged. And that's amazing, because and also they're not going to become distracted by a computer or some toy. They're fully present when they're sitting in the circle. And so I really like that. And then I also like that you can introduce all kinds of activities, and the students, they have their favorites. They start to enjoy learning, and even if they're shy or they're nonverbal, and they start helping each other. So the ones that are sitting next to them will remind them of the rules, and they had different jobs and different responsibilities. They might want to pass out some materials you're going to use in the circle to do an activity as a group. So I thought that was amazing that they were all really paying attention. That's what I liked. And even when they were taking turns, when it was whoever had the talking piece, everybody was looking and listening to the person whose turn it was. And I really like that.
Wow, that's really some great information right there. Thank you. And then Faye?
The beautiful thing about Circle is that it's constant. Almost every circle I do, I learn something. There's something new and exciting. I feel like it's almost like, I don't want to, you're going to edit this out, but it's like a little drug. You get a little bit more each time. And you learn a little bit more about students each time. But the initial click, I have to agree with Cindy, is when you see that students are able to do the work, that it doesn't have to be your, always you carrying. When you see students challenging other students to open up. But I just love how I keep learning from doing circles. And I keep learning new things.
That's such a great attitude to have, right? You can continue to be almost like a student while you're being a teacher. Love that. Thank you. Monique?
So for me, it really clicked when students began saying to me, we didn't do our circle. Ms. Kander, are we going to have time for our circle? You didn't set aside enough time. Or that circle was too short, we need more time. And when I began to see how important this had become to the students, that's when it clicked for me. I have one student right now, and I'm looking around my room because there was a picture that the student drew. But she had curvature of the spine. You couldn't tell it looking at her. But she was in extreme pain, and as she explained it, the family was at such a poverty level and maybe educational level that they didn't have all the resources to give her the physical therapy that she needed. So she endured a lot of pain. But she would tell us that sometimes the only reason why she got up and came to school was because there was a circle. And that, of course, as it's impacting me now, thinking back, that really impacted me about the importance of these community circles to building the bond and giving these students a reason to come to school and a reason to form bonds and a reason to stay in school. I also want to say that it clicked with me when students began sharing, as that student did. When you would see students who, when we first started the circle, mum, or pass, 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 and then when they began to share and you saw, wow, this person is now talking. And that, of course, was when it clicked at how important it is.
Wow. I really felt that story, by the way, of your student with the curvature in the spine. Thank you. And just everything you're saying. Just yesterday, I had about over 200 educators in a school, and we were kind of going, I had them in circles and small circles. And there was one, for whatever reason, there was that one teacher, and I kind of was like going, oh, she's going to be tough, because she was like, that you could almost tell like she didn't want to be a part of this in the beginning. I was like, this is going to be a tough. But as her own colleagues, and we kept going in different activities in the circle, pretty soon I look over and she's like talking, her hands are flailing, and I'm going, okay, she bought in. It's good. All right, go ahead. Thank you, Laura.
I'm just remembering all these moments of click in each of your circles. And in this moment, I just have so much reverence because I see some unique conscientiousness and service in each of you as educators, and to be applying that in a unique way. It requires something. It requires an open mind, like you said, Monica, like this curiosity, and then a willingness to really dive in and to share that space. So I'm just in awe. But for the next question, what would you recommend to any individual at a site that's just, maybe on the fence or wondering, should I implement restorative practices, be it a counselor, a administrator, just anyone that, would like to implement restorative practices at their site, what would you say?
Do it. Just do it. I think that it does need to be rooted in education, and the entire staff needs to understand, or at least the staff that's engaging in these practices need to understand the foundations of it. But it's so powerful. And, as somebody who's a veteran moving into their 30th year, like Faith said, we learn something in every single circle. And it allows us to connect with students in ways that make education more meaningful for them. So it takes down some of those walls that some of you were just talking about that may be up when they come into circle. And I always knew that the class was fully engaged once we had a circle. I have a ramp in front of my room, and the first circle where like half the class is out on the ramp because they're crying, and then the people run out to support them and they take the tissue box, and it's like a whole thing. But once that happens, that class becomes a family. And because they're a family, they care about each other, they engage with each other, and they learn better together. So it does take some training and it takes some preparation, but it's so powerful and so rewarding for people who do it.
Yes, so I agree with Cindy, and it feels like a family, and I think it's a place where everyone's voice can be heard. It's a safe place, and I think the rules are so important. When you establish the rules, how to respect one another and listen and take turns, I think that's so important to have a positive learning environment. And that's a great place where you can have those, where you can start with that, and everyone feels included. So I think doing restorative circles, it just restores well-being in everyone. And if you follow, if you follow the rules, then I think everyone benefits.
I think there is a tendency for people to consider this like therapy or something outside of education, separate from education. Although anyone in education knows how much we are starving for those services on campus. So since we don't have those wraparound services, then yeah, I can see it as taking the place of therapy. But like Cindy said, learning can't occur until you make those human connections. And I really think, just like any subject, you're learning. I mean, the goal is to learn how to connect with humanity through science, through math, through whatever. So it's like it's a foundational skill. And I would say to anyone who is like pushing back on it, you need that foundation.
So what I would recommend is, as Cindy said, dig in. I would say jump in. Just do it. You'll see that you will have a classroom there's a respectful environment. It will make teaching more enjoyable. It will make your students more eager to listen to you. You can also then transition to not just doing this on subjects of, how are you feeling? What did you do? But we've all used it now on our substantive courses. So, for example, we had the Ford Institute and the Ford Motor Company actually come out from Michigan to see our program. And one of the things that we shared with them was a circle, and we actually invited the attorneys and administrators to join our circle with a group of sophomores. What were we discussing? We were working on human trafficking and in educating our students about the signs, about what to stay away from. So these educators and attorneys were amazed because we were having a substantive law discussion in a circle, and each student was sharing how they felt one of the questions about being taught about human trafficking. Initially, one of the attorneys shared with us from Ford that they felt that this topic was too heavy for the group. But after they heard each student express themselves about how they felt empowered, how they felt enlightened, now they could understand and protect themselves and protect others, it was an amazing moment.
My goodness. Wow, just the richness of the educational experience is it's so expansive. It's just amazing. So thank you all for that. And then we wanted to ask you, because most of us who have really been experiencing this for some time, we know it's gone beyond the classroom for us. It's gone even beyond the school, beyond our job per se, and it's entered different parts of our lives. And I know for myself that's very true. But we just wanted to see from you, how you've experienced it, in other parts of your life outside of the classroom. So,
well, I just think that it's really important when I talk with people. Sometimes I have to remind myself to really listen to what they're saying. And I have 4 boys at home, and they're all different personalities, and my husband. And sometimes when we have disagreements, I feel like we get in this debate mode or argumentative mode, and so I feel like I have to take some time to step back and think of how to be a more effective communicator, and so I think at circle time, or even when I'm having a staff meeting, when it's circle time, everyone takes turns and they don't interrupt people, because that's, we have rules and everyone gets, a chance to speak with the talking piece. And I think that's really important when you have a staff meeting. Same thing, everyone's voice needs to be heard. People need to, take the time to really listen to what someone else is saying, and respond instead of interrupting them or cutting them off. And also, it's okay to disagree, but to respectfully disagree, or find a common ground with someone to work something out. So I think it's just great, just reminding me, how to be a better listener and a more effective communicator.
Even though it's harder for some students to participate in circle, everyone learns how to listen. Everyone practices that skill. And I definitely, the listening piece, as a mom, you go home, you want to see it from your perspective, but you know that there's another one out there. And you always have that reminder that there's a human on the other side of any kind of disagreement. I could go into many details. I had an issue this summer with a neighbor that felt like 5 years ago, before I had this practice in mind, I wouldn't have been able to, I might even consider moving, right? It could get that bad. It builds your sense of humanity. It builds your sense of accepting different perspectives.
It's very powerful. Thank you, Faith. And Monique?
I think it's been the other way around. I think many of the things that I'm constantly taught and reminded of through my religious faith, which is also very restorative, very much into listening and trying to resolve things, fed well into restorative practices as we practice it here at in the community circles and the other things that we do. But I've also brought the fun of circles into my home. We've had circles. I remember one of the first ones we had where everyone had to bring something important to them, to the circle, to use as a talking piece. And I think we were so impacted when my husband took off his wedding ring, and that was his thing. And of course, we were all just very much touched by that. So
that's powerful. Thank you, Monique. Mm-hmm. And Cindy, after hearing, do you want to add in at all?
I think they said it all. And I love what Monique had to say, because I really also feel like the premises of my faith are what kind of lead me in the way I conduct myself at school, and also the way we listen in circle. And there's a lot of grace. And I think that this is a really good opportunity to practice grace in the educational setting. And also that saying that, we don't know what our kids are, we don't know what their lives are like outside of the classroom. I don't remember what the specific saying is, but it's drilled home every year. You don't know what your kids are experiencing outside of the classroom, or what they brought to school with them that morning. And this is a way to find out. And sometimes it's really hard. But it also helps to humanize their experience and to approach them with grace.
Excellent, Cindy. Thank you. And then Laura?
Okay, so just getting right to it, what would you recommend to teachers, as teachers yourself? So a teacher's thinking, okay, I'm going to try this on. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to dive in. What would you say, Cindy?
Just do it. Just do it. It's not hard. There are lots of resources. Find an accountability partner and do it.
Yeah, I would recommend for them to do it, but I also think you do need to follow the rules of circles. Otherwise, I feel like it doesn't work. So, like, sometimes people want to sit outside the circle, or they want to bring their cell phone in the circle, or so I really think you need to follow what the rules are about, and to really make it work. And then I think it's also, well, one thing that worked for me was we got rid of the students passing their turn, because then everybody wants to pass up their turn. So what we did was we just, because I work with students with disabilities, and we just gave them the answers, like an answer, a visual menu board of pictures or different answers they can use, and however they responded, everyone was just excited that they participated. So I think it's really important that to encourage teachers to try it on, and really make sure that everyone's able to have a voice when you do the activities. So I also think it's good to introduce, to look at what activities your students really enjoy, and then also for teachers to make note of that, because many times we'll ask the students what activities they want to do. We'll see, like, they like to play certain games, or they like certain academic activities. So I think teachers, to give students a voice, and also to give different roles, give students a job, because many times students, like to be the leader in circle time. So I think it's good to give students some responsibilities when they try it on as well.
I did want to just kind of jump in. Just thank you for sharing that. Like you were saying, you provided some kind of visual choices for the students to answer from. And instead of just passing, they could just choose one, which empowers them because they have a choice, but it also supports them by providing them, some kind of an answer. I just had never heard that before. I really appreciate it. Hey?
I just think it's important to remember it's a practice, like anything that you practice. You don't, one circle doesn't just solve all your problems. And yes, you start with the foundations of rules, but you also have to be flexible. Rules can change. We might add rules. Everybody's practice looks different. We might all be running the marathon, but everybody does. Some people don't practice at all. Some people do a little bit here. It's different for everyone. So You have to practice though. You can't just expect it to work without that. And you're gonna have days where the circle doesn't feel great. You can't stop thinking about what could have been a little different. But I've never had 2 bad circles in a row, so that's all I can say.
I'm was impacted by what Alana said a couple of times about the rules. And I think it is so important because rules, in the sense in which I think Alana is talking about and I am, is you have to have the structure. You have to have this structure so that everyone is comfortable with their role and what they're doing. And so that's really up to the facilitator, and that starts with us as the teachers, to create an environment where students respect one another and where we're teaching that respect so that students can be listened to. And then they know that they can speak and they won't be laughed at. It's also important for teachers to understand that sometimes topics will come up that are unexpected. For example, when a student brought out about, having been involved in trafficking. And so to understand that the answer isn't don't do circles because something heavy may come up, but just being prepared. So that taught me, okay, there are other resources that I have at hand because I spoke to the student after, and then I spoke to administration, realized that they were aware of her background, they were helping, and that made me realize I'm not alone. There is a team here that when subjects come up, it's okay that they come up, and then I can deal with those.
Great, Monique. And then Laura, do you have any suggestions that you would provide to teachers?
Oh, wow. I mean, I just feel like I just listened to so much amazing wisdom. I really have so much reverence for all of you. One thing I did was thinking, if you're open to it, Ilana, if you could bring some of the, some of the things that you bring into circle time, to show visually. They're so good. They're so awesome. So if you have any of them at your disposal, that would be great. But for me, I think it's everything you all said. So a respect for the guidelines, which are created with students, that there's buy-in and everyone feels respected. Everyone feels like their dignity is intact. Also, just doing it again, knowing that your first practice at it might not be, everything's kumbaya. It could actually bring things up that might make you want to say, okay, back to traditional ways. But if you just continue to do it and know that you're a learner in the process, and remain humble, that it just has so many dividends to offer. So Ilana, do you have any of those things? Do you have anything?
I have the visuals. I could show you the visuals if you want to see the visuals. But I use a GoTalk 20, and it's in my garage right now.
Oh.
So I don't have that to show up. But if you wanted to see the visuals, I could share my screen if you wanted to see them.
Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
And maybe while Alana is pulling that up, I wanted to mention something else about the circles and using them. I have found that circles went so much better when I did the full circle. So sometimes we are in the circle and you might feel I'll just ask the question and pass the talking piece. But when I actually put down the centerpiece, when I actually put down various talking pieces and created a space, the circle was much deeper and much better than when I just tried to do a short circuit of that.
Wow. That's helpful. Thank you. And then, Alana, did you say you have something there?
I could show the visuals. I just want to remind you, I work with students with moderate to severe disabilities. But if you want to see the visuals we use, I did put the link in the chat, and I can just share that on the screen.
Yeah, why don't you share it on the screen for us?
Okay. We have our rules, but we do put our rules on, sometimes we'll put our roles with big pictures on poster board so the students can pass them out. And then, so for example, one of the games we play is like Family Feud. And so, so what I'll do is with the pictures, if there's a prompt for the game, like we'll ask 2 students to volunteer, and then they clap their hands, and whoever claps first will read the prompt. Like, and here's an example, like name a job you can do to earn money. And then we'll have the pictures, and these pictures will be like on a GoTalk device with a pre-recorded message. So if the student is nonverbal or just needs a visual prompt because they can't think of the answer, then we'll print out these pictures and have them available. So if they can't think of something to say, they can always look at the picture. So this is just an example of pictures we might use. Or if we're studying like ocean life and we're doing Family Feud, it could be like name a sea creature. And then again, we'll have the pictures available that the students can look at, and to help them if they can't think, or they can point to a sea creature or give the name. So we just have the pictures available for them. And then here's, another activity is if we're just doing an icebreaker or asking a question. Again, we have the pictures ready. And so this one is name an activity you want to do and why. And a student can show the picture to the person who's going to answer the question if they can't think of an activity. So we're really big on visuals.
Yeah.
And that seems to really help. And then the other thing is the songs. We do music with song lyrics. So so another thing we'll do is like we do, I know high school might have different songs they're into, but one is the syllable song, Clap It Out, and we'll put the chorus really big on a piece of paper with, so that everyone can sing or chant it. And then, so that's a visual that we can make with just the words. But yeah, just always, this is a good one too. The Taylor Swift song, about being mean. We put the words on a piece of paper and everyone will say the words, and then we'll make up a question like they can change the chorus. So that was really popular with songs. So it goes like, someday I'll be living in a big city and all you're ever going to be is mean. And then they wanted to change it, to a different lyric. So we'll have the visual up and they can say, well, someday I'll be working with students, or someday I will be studying in college or whatever. So they can change the lyrics of songs. So we'll put the words up. But I would just say we're really big on visuals and songs. That's the big thing that we really have available for our students.
Thank you for sharing all that. Wow.
And I don't have the GoTalk with me right now to show you. But.
Yeah, so I do appreciate you sharing that, and thanks everyone for your time too, and patience. Those are new. Those are new visuals from when I was with you. And that just goes to show that you do continue to refine what you bring into this space. And using that kind of creativity and knowing that every single student, every single human can benefit from the practice. And it's really neat that you've said, hey, wait a minute, my students can benefit as well. And you've made that into something special. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And we did want to ask you, if you were kind of speaking directly with students, because this is kind of the student section right now where you would be speaking to them to encourage them, what would you recommend to students who are just beginning their involvement in restorative justice practices, with their teacher? What would you kind of recommend to them, Cindy?
I would encourage them to keep an open mind. It's a little bit strange when your teacher sits you down in a circle and expects you to share personal things about yourself. And so from the teacher perspective, I try to start with lighter questions and then move deeper as we go. But from the student perspective, I would say just be willing to engage in the process and open yourself up to the possibility that this is going to be something really awesome for you.
That's great. Thank you, Cindy. And Alana?
So I would encourage students to be positive and open-minded. Because I tried it with high school just recently again. and I heard, students saying, oh, I don't want to do this baby stuff. And then once we got over like establishing the rules and how we're going to be positive and open-minded, they really enjoyed having a voice. And they really did feel connected. And then we also listened to what rules they thought were important, because we wanted, when you start asking them questions, well, what do you think is important? Then you get that communication going.
Fantastic. Very empowering. Thank you. And Faith, what about you?
Yeah, we, one class had a ground rule that they had created, and it was build your character. And that we, there's two kinds of kids, right? There's the kids that are really excited to do circles. And then I guess there's more than two kinds, but you have the kids that are really excited to do circles, and they can look on it as an opportunity to build your character. But it's also true about the students that are like, maybe not so into it. And those students that need that open-minded piece. But I would say, you haven't met the you in the future. And I have met many students in 9th grade who did not like circles. And come to find out that as they get older, they realize the value of it. So I think it can benefit those who are eager and who want to become leaders and to build their character, but also for those who just want to observe and kind of like sit with the lessons they're learning, to give themselves that opportunity to absorb for their future self.
That's great. Thank you, Faith. And Monique?
I would tell those students, and in fact all students, to understand where the circles will take them. And to help them do that, I show them a sequence from one of our classes of seniors. And when they see the tight bond as these seniors lead the circle, the questions, as they see the students bursting out into laughter as they answer, who's your celebrity crush? They want that. And so I'm telling them, you will get there if you participate in these circles.
Good. Thank you. A great example. Laura?
Yeah, for the sake of time, I'm just going to go right towards the next question. Why students as leaders, Cindy?
Because they're so much better at it than I am. They're the most important people in the classroom, and so they should be leading.
I think students need to learn how to work with everyone. And the students I work with, they have moderate to severe disabilities. And many times people want to separate them, or they want to group them in different groups. And it's amazing what I see when we do circle time, the students who are leaders, they want to work with everybody. They want to help everybody. And also, even students that have had a negative attitude, and staff will try to model, like how you could treat people with respect. And I think when they become a leader, I see more of them kindness coming from them, because they're trying to make sure that everyone's following the rules, everyone has a turn. And so I just see when they start helping other people, I see acts of kindness. they start to, care, and they want to work with everybody.
In a school like Crawford, teachers come, teachers go. We talk about building community. We talk about resources. Everything seems to come down to money. Like, where are we going to find money? This practice doesn't cost anything. You feed the organization by having student leaders who then train other leaders. To have that culture develop in your school, I don't think, I haven't seen anything else that has the potential to do that. And so, like Cindy said, they're the most important people, and they should be running the school. And this is their opportunity to really affect change on campus.
And I would say students listen to students. So to get the most buy-in, there are always those students who are ready to jump in and participate. And having those students lead draws other students in. And then those quiet students become leaders themselves.
Those are all great just recommendations and great knowledge. Is there any final thoughts that you want to add to, if there's anything that's kind of come to mind? We'll just kind of start with Cindy.
As we're coming back from the pandemic, I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety. Maybe it's just me, but from what I've heard, it's not just me. And I imagine that our students are also experiencing a lot of anxiety. So if you've never done this before, wow, what an amazing time to use this as a tool to reconnect with students and reform communities in our schools. And so I teach AP psychology. That's my academic subject. I also teach AVID. And so, in AVID, we do tutorials. So we have students leading tutorials all the time. But in AP psychology, before the pandemic, it was me lecturing. And so I'm thinking about how I can transform my classroom and have students' voices become the center of what we're doing in AP psychology, because I feel like that's a little bit hypocritical of me to be holding the stage in a class where we talk about human development and human thoughts and emotions. So I think that it is a really powerful instructional tool, and at the foundation is acknowledging that our students are human beings and that they bring a lot to the table, and if we allow them to have a voice, that we benefit from that.
That's great. Thank you, Cindy. And Ilana?
Yeah, I think it's important to think of circles as restorative and positive, and it should not be a place that is punitive or negative. And so I think that's important to remember, that people that are participating, they should feel good, they should not be feeling bad. And so I always, want to make sure we find a way to make it a very positive environment. So everyone, even if you're shy or if you're uncomfortable, that when you're going to go there, that you're going to get support, and that you're going to get respect. So I think that's really important to remember.
That's great, Ilana. Thank you. Faith?
So to piggyback on Cindy, we are humans first. So teachers and students second. We can jump into those roles all we want and all the things that kind of limit us in those roles. But in circle, everyone has a place at the table. And that is incredibly important right now, that everyone feels they have that place.
Thank you. And Monique?
Before students can care about what we're teaching, for many of them, it's important to know that we care about them. Once they're convinced that we really care, they're willing to take advantage of the opportunities that we tell them, you can do this. The circles create the environment in which we show that we care. We care about the things that are going on at home. We care about the struggles that they had before they even got here. And once we have that relationship, there's no limit to what they will do.
Wow, that's powerful. And then, Laura, do you got any final thoughts?
Just thank you all for your time, for being here. It's big. And I felt like I had a few moments of click just now. I would love to be in any of your circles. Like, just being here, I'm reminded of these moments that have made me a different human being. I am different because of these moments. And as we all know, this is brave work, and I've gotten some thicker skin. So, like, you know, if as long as I'm able, I will be there to support in any way I can. But what you're doing, it to me is like life changing, not just to me, but to your students and the people that your students touch, and them. Like, everyone is impacted by this. So thank you.
And may I add something too?
Yes.
I would love to be a part of your circle, Faith, Cindy, Alana. I know you're not on our campus, but I would love to learn by being a part of your circles, really. So I hope I get the chance, Faith and Cindy.
We want to thank you, for your time of serving our community in this way. I know this is, you went above and beyond to be here, and even that, your desire to do that really was from your restorative experience and how your life has been enhanced as a teacher through that. And I also know, out of your respect for Laura and her respect for you and your relationship, which has developed so well in that restorative circle, this came about. So we're very grateful to you, and we hope that this will reach as many people as it can, because I think, I've trained like thousands of educators, literally. And I think this is one of the best training tools I've ever seen, because I got to kind of go, let me hear it from the different types of teachers. And it's just really powerful for me. So I've learned so much. I take so much away from this, and I will, try my best to emulate that in the trainings that I provide. So again, thank you all again for your service, everything you do, every day as service and teaching, but definitely for this tool that once it's done, we'll obviously get you that link so you can access that and share it with whoever you want. But we'll be sharing that, and we just really appreciate you. So thank you.